Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Scientology Ask Its Explanations Part 1.
3rd February 1953.
But the time will pass very quickly for you because at that point in time in which you will emerge, June 1975, further dangerous things, which spring from the power-greedy forces, will already take their course. At that time, and also even later, it will be America, Russia and China that very strongly push for enslaving world domination. So it will not be at a later point in time the Jewish Zionists, as many people presume, who sharpen their blood sword through mass murdering acts of violence and with the help of the Christian religion to subjugate the earth. Rather smaller powers and various malignant sects, whereby one such really malignant one leads back to a certain Ron Hubbard. In this regard, they are already preparing the first decisive strikes in order to expand their power and to create dangerous country-controlling positions. The Earth human should protect himself from providing any help to such power-greedy sects and rulers, because they cause the smallest help to become a deadly weapon against the helper, in order, therewith, to come closer, step by step, to the fulfillment of their addiction to world domination. Sectarianism is just as much aligned only with greed for money and power as certain holders of power are aligned with enslaving world domination. Sectarianism likewise serves, for its believers and followers, only as a means to an end, as is peculiar to every actual religion, every ideology, as well as every secret society which demands world domination, and every political ruler.
Contact Report 250.
But what do you think of the Scientology sect?
It is an illusory false religion that strives for a financial political world power and even wants to become world dominating, whereby any mumbling means of a material kind is just as right for it as any psycho-destroying act against people who succumb to the sect. Brainwashing is a common process, as are death threats and assassinations of members who have jumped out or of persons who are hostile or simply disapproving of the sect. Any malicious means is just good enough for the sect to achieve its bold and exploitative and psycho-slave goals. Thus, they also carry out questionable machinations regarding drug programs in order to bring even drug addicts into their power. Thus, these undertakings are also only means to an end, whereby unstable, illogical thinkers and people incapable of living are led astray, deceived, exploited, and thus misled and turned into scientific handlers whose power of judgment and ability to recognize truth is not only suppressed, but is also underdeveloped.
Contact Report 257.
This already brings us to L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. What about the Scientology guidelines that exist today? Were these actually created after his death by his cult heirs, as is repeatedly claimed? Or were they fundamentally produced in their entirety by himself?
First of all, it must be said that this sect is one of the worst on earth because it indulges and exists in an inhuman ethic. With this sect, everything is directed towards making the human being cold in feelings and emotions through a deep-reaching brainwashing. The sect guidelines were devised and established in every respect by the founder of the sect, Hubbard himself. Everything is structured according to its meaning and is handled according to it worldwide today.
Contact Report 568.
And the hammer here is that many innocent human beings spend a lot of money on this disastrous nonsense, and even get into heavy debts, just as it is also the case with the Scientology sect in particular, as well as with many other religious or sham religious sects.
Contact Report 614.
Well, We already dealt with this organization years ago and got the book from Mrs. Hartwig until we were told that it had now been incorporated by the Scientologists and was now talking and working at their mill. However, we could not find out whether this is really true. But now that we have seen the film The Informers of Scientology, Die Spitzel von Scientology, Der Sektengeheimdienst OSA, Scientology's Spieß, the Cult Secret Service OSA, the whole thing topples us off again and shows us how this psycho-sect has evolved maliciously in the meantime, which has nothing else in mind but the establishment of a totalitarian world social order, which is also designed to exploit people both financially and in terms of labor. And when people who belong to the sect do not trace according to Scientology laws, then they are badly punished, not only physically but also psychologically. There are also testimonies of people who were cult members and turned away and liberated themselves from Scientology, but many of them have been harassed and psychologically harassed by Scientology spies for years, sometimes all their lives. And as the film shows, bribery, fraud, threats, blackmail, forgery and coercion are part of the everyday life of the psycho-sect, as well as the torture of delinquent cult members, which can probably be described as torture, in which the OSA or sect secret service also plays a major role. All this in addition to the fact that the cult infiltrates the authorities and organizations, etc., and has established itself in the USA in their highest government, as well as in the individual states in their authorities and their governments. The hammer was already in early sectarian time that Hillary Clinton, the wife of President Clinton, was worried that Scientology would not have to pay taxes, while Clinton himself wrote and published articles for the Scientology newspapers, suggesting something about Clinton membership of the Scientology psycho-sect.
Since I have been involved with the machinations of this criminal organization since its inception, I can only confirm what you say. The whole of the Scientology sect's endeavor, however, is not based solely on the establishment of a totalitarian world social order, but on the fact that a secret striving for effective world domination is prescribed, which is to encompass absolute control over all governments and authorities, as well as armies, secret services, and the entire economy. And in order to achieve this sect regards no means as too small, too difficult, or severe. Consequently, even the worst capital crimes have to be considered.
I am aware of that. But as long as the governments and authorities and the economic bosses and so on reach out to this cult and allow it to go ahead or even belong to this criminal organization themselves, nothing will improve and everything will only get worse. If all these responsible persons were to turn to the spiritual doctrine and learn the real, what life and evolution demand, then neither religions, sects, false philosophies, false worldviews, and especially such criminal psycho-sects as Scientology would no longer exist.
Contact Report 617.
Scientology is probably the worst of all psycho-sects.
Contact Report 779.
49.
Normally, human beings are supposed to manage their lives and their existence, but they forget how to do this in the coming decades, just as they lose self-responsibility for the weal and woe of themselves and their character. He lets someone of fellow humanity decide about him. Religions and sects that can convincingly make him believe in the might and power of a God through lies of faith and make everything of life clear. Or he will become a slave to a sect that makes him a God himself, MB. 2021. For example, Scientology is operating Thetan OT, spiritual being, which is supposed to be fundamentally as such a self or a being that, without having to use a body or physical means, can deal with all things, which furthermore mislead the human being through other belief lies in such a way, through which he becomes a believer to be great and strong and to stand above all others. MB 2021. The fact that one or the other member of the Scientology sect, as a rule an operating Thetan, dies in the process, whose death cannot be cleared up, seems to be normal for this sect.
Contact Report 831.
And the majority of the people allow this to happen and do not understand that America, since it was founded some 250 years ago, and in a murderous and effectively very human blood-shedding manner. Just think of the Civil War of America and the slavery debacle, etc., as well as the still high existing racial hatred, which is publicly practiced by the Ku Klux Klan, without the government doing anything against it, as well as not against the allegedly religious and very questionable Scientology. Then one already knows a lot about America.